Hey, what is going on, everybody? EnteR ChatZ here. We're back once again with another version of the EnteR ChatZ Podcast. As always, your favorite place to hear all of the, I don't know, kind of nerdy goodness that's been coming out of the gaming world. These are my buddies, MetalGamer and Phoenix. What's up, guys? How you been?
I'm pretty good, pretty good. Just been watching the real life Phoenix Wright play out with Xbox versus Sony. So
Yeah,
Yeah, the tea coming out of that is very sweet.
or
Um,
sour.
or sour, I guess. I don't know. I don't know why I said tea. I know that because that's like a drama word or whatever. On screen there's some audio locations if you guys would like to check us out there, and also there's social media locations. So this is going to be quite a different episode. We're kind of, I don't want to say we're short on time, but we kind of got pushed back, and we're kind of waiting on Metal Gamer to finish up on Zelda, so we can kind of finish up our kind of
slacker.
thoughts on that.
Quiet you.
I thought I was going to be the last one. Makes me feel good.
Whatever. Well, according to Phoenix, your final battle was pretty terrible. So I'm not gonna
Ooh.
fall. I'm
It
not
took me
falling
like
into that trap.
it took me like 3 tries. I didn't think that was that bad.
Yeah,
Well, you're
whatever. consistent.
consistent. I mean, watching you play Zelda is a painful experience. So at
Oh
least
my
throughout
gosh.
your all your playthroughs, it's been it's been something.
It
My
wasn't as
gosh.
bad as freaking Skyward Sword. Skyward Sword, that
It was
legitimately.
close. It was close.
I think I
That's
took
pretty
like
terrible.
it took me like 2 hours to beat Ganon. I think in Skyward Sword. Anyways, this
Oh
isn't
It
the
was
my.
no
Z-
Ganon in Skyward Sword. You hear this guy?
Oh
What
my
was it? Was it like a
gosh.
demon?
No,
Demise.
no, it was Kaiba from Yu-Gi-Oh.
It was Seto.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm. It was
Anywho,
Bowser.
I'm working on it, guys. I'm working on it. I got the thingy for the Master Sword, so at least that. Thanks, Phoenix, for letting me know that I could use the bargaining statue. Kind of late on that though, because I lost my autosave for when I got the last tier,
oh,
and I had the chance because I did like 5 times to try to get it out, and I couldn't. And by the time I you told me that, I was at the desert goofing off trying to get stuff done over there, and then tried to go back and I couldn't find it anymore. I'm mad now. So
well,
now I went through. I finished the Lost Woods.
Grumpy face now.
So yeah, no, I'm just upset at myself for being a jerk and dumb. I didn't think about it.
But yeah, once he finishes off with Zelda, we'll
Yeah,
do another separate video for that. Um, And just so you guys know why I said this is going to be a little bit different is we're only going to really touch on one major topic, and we felt like that's because this is kind of the biggest thing kind of going on right now. There's so
it's
much,
a doozy.
yeah, there's so
oh
much
boy.
stuff just kind of coming out of this one. Like when I was doing the notes, I noticed most of my notes were all pointing to this one topic. But yeah, real quick, let me switch us over. Yeah.
Is that people's court music in the back?
Really, dude?
Yep.
Oh my
But yeah, so
gosh.
we're going to be talking about this whole Microsoft versus FTC kind of saga and everything that's kind of spewing out of it. I mean, this has been it. I don't want to say I don't want to know if it's crazy, but it's been super. It's always weird getting to see kind of how the sausage is made because we don't normally get to kind of see behind the scenes of kind of how these companies really feel about what's happening sometimes about things. Um,
Oh, they always like to play off like they're the best. Yeah, they're the best. And always number one. And then this is like completely like throwing everything down. It's like, what is going on here? There's
what
just so much craziness going on. It's great to watch though. We don't get this
Well,
kind of news every day.
Well, it's nice. Well, nice with quotations, but the fact we finally get to see behind the veil a little bit. I mean, most of these major companies, want to keep everything pretty close to the chest with either trade secrets or internal documents and emails and stuff like that. So to get to kind of see what they're actually thinking sometimes and kind of pull back the PR talk is, that's worth this whole process, regardless if Microsoft wins or loses or whatnot. This has been a revealing past 4 or 5 days.
well
It's
again,
pretty
it's like
gnarly.
again, it's just super interesting to kind of see the you get to kind of see the business talk where like you see the outward I don't know, kind of view that these companies and the bosses kind of put out in terms of how they feeling about their position, and then you get to see the emails, and you're like,
Yeah, exactly.
dirty
That peek behind
dog.
the curtain. So,
Mm-hmm.
well, everybody knows. I mean, everything you hear on, your favorite video game site, IGN or whatever news outlet, you got to take with a grain of salt. It's 90% PR talk because they have a position they're trying to, promote for. So to see some truth kind of come out from all this, as far as like, actual perspectives and opinions on things, is interesting.
And it's also kind of fascinating just to kind of see. I mean, I'm not a corporate guy working for some big company, but I find it fascinating just to kind of see just the process of these companies of just kind of communicating with their inner staff about things, you know. It's just kind of interesting. Just like I would wonder if when these emails are sent, do they like have to get each email approved because of this possibility that this could be brought up in court at some point, or
It's real tricky me. I'll tell you, like, my job's not exactly the same, but there's a lot of emails that are sent and passed along that probably should not have been sent. Because people don't really think, they think about emails as this relatively closed off thing. Like, the only people who are going to see it is me and the recipient, right? But when the order comes down, you have to release all your internal documents. That includes everything. That includes your emails. That can include like text on your phone too. If you use your phone for like work purposes, you have your actual work email installed on it. It now is a work device. That's why, like, when you install all those applications, there's a flag that pops up saying your organization has the right to, modify or configure things in your phone. It's basically their device to a certain extent, which that's a reason I wouldn't recommend using, work email on your phone. But point being, they can pull any of that stuff, and it can definitely blindside you if you're not really thinking about what you said in some off the wall emails, like, buckets of money or dump trucks of money or whatever.
I just thought it was funny because I was imagining like someone in Phil Spencer's position where it's like when you are in charge of a company that can just throw $70 billion into the wind. It's like I would imagine he's sitting there, every email he sends, he has like 3 people over his shoulder, like.
It could mean potentially, but at the same time, you think about a lot of these organizations. When was the last time we saw a big regulation bar like this, where so many entities have come after a deal? Like, it's been a long time. Like, I know in the late 90s, early 2000s, Microsoft did get hit with a monopoly situation when Windows was coming out, at least be getting some prominence. So they've been in this boat before. But that's been several decades, so they may not have thought they had a lot to worry about. I would imagine most of them thought this deal at the beginning was just gonna go through. They had purchased, everybody else. They had bought in Bethesda and were just kind of, carrying that train along. They probably didn't bat much of an eye thinking about the Activision stuff. So this might have caught them off guard a little bit, which is why some of those emails from, 2, 3, 4 years ago are a little, I don't want to say scandalous, because they're not really scandalous, but maybe not worded in quite the PR way that would be more preferred if it ever was brought to court. So
I just thought
It's
about
not something
it.
you think about later down the line.
I just thought
It
about
just
it.
happens.
I'm surprised something crazy hasn't come out involving Kotick. If they have his emails and stuff. Just saying. That guy.
yeah, I mean, there's been some communications from them we can dig into, but it might have to be stuff that's pertaining to the deal.
Oh, no, I don't
If
mean us. I just mean I'm surprised nothing crazy has come out considering how Activision has been run, like,
fair.
as of late. But okay,
All
so
right, how are we doing this? Because there is a lot. I think you said you had
Yeah.
some highlights you want to get into first, and then we'll kind of pick through from there.
I did. Let me go ahead and pull them up. So again, I'm not quite sure the order. I mean, I guess I'll just kind of throw some stuff out there that I think is super interesting. One of the first things, I guess, in terms of date that I saw is one of the things I was like, I just thought it was kind of funny is the whole, we just talked about it off pod, but the Mad Booty situation where in an email,
Best name.
yeah, Matt Booty in an email to Bethesda's Pete Hines back in 2019, he said something. I don't have. I have it pretty close. It said something to the avail of like Xbox, if they really wanted to, could spend Sony out of business in terms of acquisitions and other things to kind of block them out. Now again, I believe he's kind of turned that around and has said that this was like years ago and.
Yeah, but that
4 years
shows your
ago.
hand. I mean, okay, so it was years ago, but this deal was also years ago in the making. I mean, just because, we saw it come out. What was it last year that this thing actually
like
kind of
year.
kicked
Yeah.
off?
So, yeah.
So I mean, it's not like this just came out last year. For the past 3 or 4 years, I'm sure they had been considering buying Activision, working on the back end side of things. So I'm sure that email was probably relatively telling. Could have been one of the jumping off points for this whole process internally. And we know that's their goal. I mean, as consumer friendly as Microsoft is wanting to appear, they would love if there wasn't a lot of competition, right? They'd love to have a larger market share and make more money. So there's plenty of truth, I'm sure, to that statement that hasn't exactly gone anywhere.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I don't know. I just think it's kind of funny, and obviously that's not true because Xbox has thrown around close to $100 billion since then, and Sony is still in business. So,
well, to be fair, a good chunk of that $100 billion
this lawsuit
hasn't gone anywhere yet, right? It's all kind of on hold. And you're right, we haven't really seen a lot come out of the other acquisitions yet. Bethesda's dropped the ball a little bit when it comes to Arcane and a few other things. Who knows about Starfield? So, I mean, that's true. Even though that was their hope to spend dump trucks of money to go ahead and get a lead, hasn't paid off yet. But once again, this whole acquisition could be that turning point, which is kind of what the FTC is arguing against, right? Like, if this goes through, this is going to unfairly shift the tide, and either not necessarily give them a monopoly completely, but definitely harm the competitive space and ultimately harm the consumer. But I guess that's kind of where we can discuss as we get towards the end of it, because there's some interesting tidbits that come out.
And I guess I should also say, like, I mentioned I wanted to bring it up, is like this whole situation, like, I guess I'll throw it out there. I don't think it's any, secret that, like, at least with me, I know to an extent maybe you as well, but I would definitely say I probably fall more along the lines of being an Xbox fanboy, I guess, if you were to throw me on a side. Even though I own all consoles, I enjoy all the consoles. But like, even though, like, I would say I'm more of an Xbox fanboy, I would say this whole situation mostly for me kind of spells out even like further the idea that like these companies are, whether how much you like them or dislike them, they are just mega corporations who are just trying to get the leg up on the other corporations within the market. It's like no matter what argument each company has, it's just kind of like a full circle of each. It's like one company saying, "Oh well, you're taking this, therefore we have to do this to combat that," and then it's the next company saying, "Well, because you're doing that, we have to do this to combat this," and it's just like it's so funny how kind of cyclical the whole thing is entirely.
Well, the goal of any business is to make as much money as possible, right? I mean, ultimately, they are not here to serve the consumer. I mean, the consumer is a means to the end, right? And the end is money. So Microsoft, I know, has really tried to, and I think has done a pretty good job over the past few years, is kind of standing in as the consumer-friendly good guy, right? A lot of their practices have come across relatively consumer-friendly. Game Pass, for the most part, has been, pretty accessible, relatively cheap, lots of, value there. But that's not to say that if, 3 years out, all of a sudden they do have Call of Duty and whatnot, and Game Pass is just this all-encompassing thing, they don't use that as a tool to completely shut out the competition and stick it to the consumers. I mean, I wouldn't put that above and beyond Microsoft, and that's where everybody's concern is here. So ultimately, regardless how you feel about any one company, being a fanboy here isn't going to serve anybody well. Ultimately, you want to make sure that the consumers are getting the best deals possible, and that's the whole point of this whole argument, right? This whole deliberation is to try to make this as fair to consumers as possible. Now, I don't know if the FTC's done a great job of that. I think primarily, and we'll see some specifics here in a minute, they haven't really talked about how, I don't say they haven't talked about it at all, but they haven't really, I think, given a good case on how this harms general consumers. They've talked a lot about how this is going to harm the Sony consumer.
Well, they focused on Call of Duty when it's like,
right, specifically PlayStation Call of Duty users.
Yes.
Like, and I think that's what's so interesting. They're not looking at this from a broad stance. They're boiling this down to Sony versus Microsoft, which, if this doesn't go in their favor, I think that's probably going to be the reason why. They weren't broad and just think, okay, general consumer practice, what's going to be best for them and why. Sony's definitely a part of that in their user base. The fact they're leaving the Switch out of this, I think, is interesting. I don't think that initially helps their case. I mean, and for those who haven't read, they're trying to go ahead and set up when they're doing these market analysis and comparisons, it's just Microsoft and Sony. The Nintendo Switch, they're arguing, isn't even a modern console because it came out so long ago.
They're saying that it's not even like a competitor at all, and it's like, oh, their hardware is so behind. It's like it doesn't matter about that. It's like, what are you talking about?
We're not worried about the
like,
GameCube.
half their
And the reason they leave it out is not even because of that. It's because if you bring the Switch into the conversation, their argument drops so hard because now it really puts the perspective on just how far behind Microsoft truly is when you have Nintendo, Sony, and then Microsoft way down here. It's different if it's just Microsoft and Sony. And the other thing too, the big argument is Call of Duty, right? Nintendo hasn't had Call of Duty in
since the
10
Wii?
years. I don't know. Yeah, I think Wii U. They had like Black Ops or something.
Yeah, they had one of them.
And even then, it wasn't like a primary selling point for them. They haven't viably had a Call of Duty on their system that's done well for them, and I'm going to say just close to a decade. So obviously, Call of Duty is not the primary reason that a company is going to stay afloat, and that I think is a shady way to approach this, just to take this very obvious arguing point, just kind of leave it off the table. So I don't know if that's going to work for them.
Well, Call of Duty is a bad. I still think Call of Duty is a bad argument and bad place to look, because of the game style it is. Like, Call of Duty, profit-wise, is not going to go exclusive. It's a multiplayer game. It is best utilized as multiplayer, and it's like, it goes the same thing. I guess this kind of ties into another game, is a game that people were surprised became exclusive when Microsoft bought out what's the Minecraft developer? It's Mojang. A lot of people expected that to go a console exclusive, and from what it sounds like, it was gonna go multi-plat, but I have it in my notes. But a PS5, but Sony never sent dev kits to Xbox, so that they could get that game ready for Minecraft, and it's like.
Which, to be fair, a lot of people are kind of coming at Sony because they also said that for if Microsoft owns Call of Duty or Activision, they wouldn't feel comfortable sending them a dev kit for their next PS6 or whatever it is, because they don't want to give them any trade secrets. Which, to be fair, yeah, I mean, if you're developing some brand new console with some fancy features that you don't want anybody to snake out from under them, why would you feel comfortable showing those plans to a direct competitor? It was one thing showing it to Activision when Activision was its own entity, but if they are under Microsoft, Microsoft now has full access to their design specs and all of that. But so a lot of people are coming really... Oh, go ahead.
No, as I say, that just creates, again, a cyclical, never-ending circle, because it's like, but then what if there's a game that that Xbox wants to put on PlayStation? It's like, so then you get to see their console as well. It's like, Okay, what
Xbox game has showed up on PlayStation? As I'm saying, they don't want to do that. You don't see Halo on PlayStation, and part of it, there's exclusivity there, but you don't see Gears of War, you don't see Forza. I mean, there's multiple facets to this. Is the whole point. Most of them want exclusive. They want a reason for you to be on their system primarily. That's the whole point of exclusives in the first place. The only reason I mention that, it's not that I'm 100% for that. I agree. Like, games like Call of Duty and whatnot, especially right now, make so much more sense being multi-platform, because more people can play, especially when the player base primarily is on PlayStation. Why would you want to alienate that? But I don't want to completely disregard that point, because there's some truth to it that, yes, if I have to, get this new game up and ready for my next console, I have to basically disclose trade and design secrets for a brand new piece of hardware, which that's an iffy thing. So, I don't know. I'm not saying that... Go ahead.
No, to be fair, Call of Duty is, like, as much as I love Gears of War and Halo, Call of Duty's a much larger entity than those properties have been in a long time. So it's like, I don't know, I think you can get away with keeping Halo Infinite on your console, because it's not, I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, those two properties have not shown well, and not saying Gears 5 wasn't a good game or anything, but
just in general. I mean, that's, I think, the argument there. But I think you have raised a good point. Like, this whole situation hinging on Call of Duty, I think is what's going to bite them in the butt with this whole thing. I mean, they're making a lot of arguments. I know some of these were saying that, I think some data was revealed that there's like 1 million or 2 million PlayStation users who 100% of their game playtime is only Call of Duty. So you got 2 million people or whatever only playing Call of Duty. I think they then said like another 60 or 70% majority of playtime was Call of Duty. So you're looking at a large percentage of the PlayStation user base that is all playing Call of Duty. But the whole catch here then is, okay, if an efficient argument from the FTC is, okay, PlayStation's going to be screwed over because Microsoft doesn't let them have Call of Duty. Microsoft, in so many quotes throughout this trial and before, have said, we will sign a contract today that you can have, what, didn't they say like a 10-year exclusive deal with them to have Call of Duty on their platform?
With Nintendo,
So
you mean?
No, well, they've had that too, but
With Sony.
they had a proposed contract with Sony. I can't remember the time, how long it was, and correct me if I'm wrong, but what I'm getting at is Microsoft has come out and said they've sworn under oath they will keep Call of Duty on PlayStation. So if the FTC's big argument is that PlayStation gamers are going to get screwed over in this whole process because they lose Call of Duty, that's not going to be the case. Whether it was going to be prior to all this or not, Microsoft has shifted directions and basically said, you can have this game. We don't, well, I'm not saying they don't care, but we'll make this happen so we can get the rest of this deal through. Now, after 10 years, they might change their mind, but still, that's a pretty, I think, big thing to kind of show that Microsoft is trying to bend a little bit to the regulations.
Another thing I wanted to throw in is there was this guy, moving on to a guy named Deering. I think he was some sort of Sony executive. In an email to Jim Ryan, I guess they were kind of making fun of the Xbox acquisition or Activision Blizzard acquisition at the time, and they were saying that they didn't understand the deal. Xbox could have gotten Call of Duty exclusive for 3 years for $5 billion with Activision anyways. He said it would have been better off, Microsoft would have been better off announcing an electric car. I don't know, it's just, I find it kind of interesting just the fact that Xbox could have had Call of Duty exclusive for 3 years for $5 billion, which I don't know if that's really the way to go. I mean, I would think in the long run, I mean, just buying Activision was the better route anyways, especially if you have the capital like Microsoft, but
I think it's the better route. But that's an interesting thing to say, that if they would have done that, I don't think we'd be going through this whole process. Like, I don't think you'd have anybody arguing or any of these regulating bodies giving you an issue with it. But essentially, what they're now arguing is exactly that deal, right? Exclusivity for Call of Duty. So, as I said, I think Call of Duty being kind of the hinge of this whole thing is going to be the, nail in the coffin, whatever you want to say, that kind of, shifts this away from the FTC being favorable in the whole grand scheme of things.
I mean, from what I understand, I actually think, from what I've gathered, most people think Microsoft isn't doing this mainly for Call of Duty. I think from what I'm gathering, a lot of people think the largest portion that Microsoft really wants is a lot of the cloud infrastructure and
mobile
a lot of
stuff.
What was it?
It was mobile.
Mobile.
From what it
yes.
seems like that's like their main focus.
Yes,
Yeah.
a lot of the mobile oriented things, along with the cloud infrastructure that they would be getting.
Well, they've been going towards that direction for quite some time now.
Mm-hmm. Oh, definitely.
So I wouldn't be surprised that that's like one of their main focuses.
Mm-hmm. And I guess just thinking on, I know if you get Activision Blizzard mobile wise oriented, you get, the entire Blizzard catalog along with Diablo Immortal, which I don't think that game critically did well, but apparently in terms of money, it made buku money. So Activision has like expertise in that, and I guess that also kind of ties into another thing I had, where around the time just before this acquisition was made or attempted to be made by Microsoft, Xbox they say was also looking to purchase other studios and publishers. It looks like they were looking to buy which one that everyone thought, Sega was on the list. Then there was Bungie. Then there was IO Interactive. If you don't know, IO Interactive is the Hitman guys. They make a lot of those games. Then there's Square Enix, Niantic, and Zynga. Now, right off the bat, Bungie's gone, so they missed out on that one. That's Sony. And then
Bungie would have went back to Microsoft though anyway.
I don't
with
think
their
so.
history.
No, I don't think
Is
so.
is it Niantic with Nintendo?
No, Niantic got bought out. Oh no, I'm thinking of Zynga. Zynga went to Take-Two.
Niantic's its own thing. I mean, they produce Pokemon Go,
They
they work with
They
the
work with
Nintendo license. Whether they work with a Pokemon company, but that Pokemon
Yeah.
is a weird thing with who it's wrapped up with. But they're not owned by any other publisher that I know of.
Yeah, Take-Two went to or Take-Two bought Zynga. I remember that one. But yeah, that's super interesting because again, going back to a lot of the mobile argument, going after companies like Square Enix and Sega, like those are, and Niantic, that's huge in the mobile market. And to be honest, the Square Enix one would have been super interesting because what game just came out?
Yeah.
You know, that game could have been possibly an Xbox exclusive, or maybe that contract was already printed on, you know, for Sony, for that to be a Sony console, but you could have gotten Final Fantasy 17, you know, on an Xbox exclusive, who knows, but
Here's the thing, it's not like that game all of a sudden is multi-platform. Like, it is exclusive. Like, I think that's why like this whole argument of any one gaming exclusive is so dumb, because every one of these companies has been fighting for exclusives forever. Okay, so yeah, Call of Duty is a big one. I'm not going to argue that, but yeah, it could have been Final Fantasy. It could have been Destiny. It could have been whatever, right? So I don't know. I think the fact that they're using that as kind of the linchpin in these arguments that, oh, because it could be exclusive, I don't know. That's how it's always been. That's a standard practice in this industry. So the fact that, I don't know, it's almost hypocritical. Their argument. It's either hypocritical or it shows a really how do I want to phrase this? A lack of understanding of kind of just the gaming landscape in general, right? Because this isn't even a new thing. Exclusivity, I mean, that's been around since, I'm going to say like, what, PlayStation 2 era, Xbox, probably prior to that, PlayStation 1. Like, they've had exclusives around forever, probably longer than that. I mean, I guess you could argue even going back to you know,
Nintendo,
old Nintendo.
Sega,
Yeah.
like Mario with Sega. I mean, Mario, Sega, Sonic's.
Yeah, I think back then it was a little different because you didn't have as many publishers, and like a lot of those Marios and Sonics and whatnot were in-house first-party developers. So I guess you never really expected those to be multi-platform, but just in general, the concept of exclusivity has been around forever. So I don't feel like that should be a real strong arguing point in this whole process. I know one of the other things they pulled up too is not even just exclusivity. So let's say it does go multi-platform with Call of Duty. I know there was a quote in here, and I can't remember by who. It was someone on the Xbox side, but they were asked about an internal email basically saying, if we get Call of Duty, we're going to make it either, what was it, first, better, best experience, where either the game would come first to Xbox platforms, be better, or to switch straight to be the best. So the question is, what makes it better or best? And I mean, that's a slippery slope. They were questioned a little bit on it, and were super cagey.
Put the 480p version on Sony
resolution came up.
Yeah,
like there are some things that, and once again, this is not new.
To be fair,
I think it was Destiny and Call of Duty have done this before, right? Where maps would come to one console first.
Call of Duty is straight up in previous versions left out game modes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
game modes get left out. Destiny did that forever, right? Because they had contracts with Sony to get a lot of premium content.
Night Moon or Nighthawk? There was a gun.
Hawkmoon.
Hawkmoon, yeah.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Who's Nighthawk? That's somebody. Is that Mortal Kombat? I don't know.
Anyway, so point being is, companies have done this forever. I think what got at least my eyebrows raising a little bit is they start questioning about, well, could that mean like performance modes or optimization or resolution? Like, that is potentially a little scary to think that you could get, 4K resolution on the Xbox, we're only getting 1080 on the PlayStation. Because now that's like a really limiting gameplay experience factor, right? It's not just, oh, I don't have a skin, I don't have a map. You literally are playing an inferior game at the gameplay experience level. So they didn't, confirm that. They were really cagey and very vague about it, but those terms were thrown up: frame rate, resolution, stuff like that. To have those grouped in as potential selling points to play it on a certain console, that's sketchy. So.
To be fair, I mean, Xbox, in my opinion, has the ultimate, though, trump card in terms of these type of things, because, again, like, Game Pass is their ultimate, ace in the hole. It's like, sure, we'll let Sony have the next Call of Duty, let it be on their console, but if you come to our console for $15 a month, $10 a month, you get access to the newest Call of Duty. I mean, I still think Game Pass still allows
but is that the only thing that makes it better, right? Or is it, okay, you can have it on PlayStation, or you can have it on Game Pass and also get 4K, and you can't have that on... I don't think they'll really go that route. I feel like that is not just anti-consumer. I feel like there's bigger issues there, but...
That's the whole reason FTC is here in the first place.
Like, and that is an argument I feel is very valid. I don't think that's something they would really do. I feel like there's other things they'd withhold, like content and stuff like that. The other thing, I don't know if you saw this, but from internal emails, they talked about eventually potential tiers to Game Pass, kind of like what PlayStation's doing with their PS Plus right now.
Yeah.
Right now, you just kind of have Game Pass, right, or Game Pass Ultimate if you're on the PC. But now they were talking about, okay, you have a tier 1, which the tier 1's going to include Call of Duty. That's like the premium. Tier 2 won't. Tier 3 will do this. And of course, there's going to be price differences there. So you'll see a change with Game Pass one way or the other if this goes through from a pricing standpoint, which may or may not make it more appealing or less appealing. I don't know.
Yeah, and to be honest, like since you brought up the tier, just the idea of pricing, on Kind of Funny Games, Paris Lilly, I think I remember I was listening to their podcast. He brought up an interesting point about him being so disappointed in the timing or well, I'll bring it up, but like he brought up an aspect that I don't know if you've heard, but like apparently Xbox Game Pass, the pricing is going up. I think they said it was $1 or $2 a month.
Yeah.
And then the pricing of the overall console is going up in multiple countries by $50 essentially.
Yeah. It's matching what the PlayStation was doing pretty much.
And I just remember his argument was just like the timing of that is horrible because like, Xbox, most people are saying that Xbox is on the verge of possibly a console seller for them coming up in September and Starfield. So it's like the timing of that is just kind of icky, It's like, oh, now you raise prices now that you might have an actual good game on the horizon. I don't know.
Well, to be fair though, I mean, you're not wrong. I don't think a big enough chunk of the market is going to scoff at $1 or $2. Like, if there's a game you want to play, like if I'm looking at it, okay, and I'm looking at Starfield sitting there on the shelf for $60, or I could get a Game Pass subscription for $18. Yeah, that's $2 more than it was, but I can get a Game Pass subscription for a month or 2 months, however long.
And you get
that's
Redfall.
Still cheaper than buying the game outright. Huh?
Get
Redfall, right? Yeah. Even better. No, they should take away money for that. But I mean, I guess what I'm saying is I think that's a true perspective. I don't think it will really end up having a big difference. Like, people who want to play Starfield are still going to see Game Pass as a good, appealing way to play it. I did want to mention one more thing about Game Pass before I forget about it, because this was a place that the FTC kind of slipped up. I don't remember what day it was, but it was recent. They were trying to basically talk about, Game Pass and Call of Duty, and if they did go exclusive, how much Game Pass would basically have to increase to make up for it. And this, I'm not sure if this was a straight up slip up the way they said it, or if they presented this in a poor fashion, but they basically said if they went into Call of Duty and made it exclusive on Xbox consoles, I think Xbox would have to increase their subscription for Game Pass by like 2 million users or something, wow. An extreme amount. Yeah. And I can't remember if that was like yearly or whatnot, but it basically kind of
make up for the
shot the
FTC
argument in the foot. Right. Yeah. Because now it's basically like, well, why would you go exclusive when you have to have this, not insurmountable, but this really kind of high expectation on increasing Game Pass sales, which probably isn't going to happen. And you also had, I think, Microsoft financial executives saying that if this deal goes through, for it to even work out in Microsoft's favor, it has to be profitable immediately. They don't have time for it to turn around over X amount of months and raise up subscriptions. It has to basically day one start making money. So once again, being exclusive off the get-go is not going to do that for them.
Xbox should just promise that Redfall is coming to PS5. That solves all their issues. But real quick, I guess kind of branching off that, I did mention Starfield, so I figured this would be another interesting direction to go in. Also, kind of in some background emails, Phil Spencer he did confirm that basically previously to Bethesda being purchased back in 2029 or 2029, back in 2021, essentially Xbox
in the future.
Essentially, they claim Xbox essentially made the purchase of Bethesda to essentially remain competitive in the business in general, because they felt as though Sony was essentially going to pay for exclusivity for Starfield, and this is touched, and that's can be easily proven because they had just done that. Sony did with Deathloop and Ghostwire Tokyo. So it's like, again, it's both companies kind of poking the bear, and it's I don't know, tit for tat, I guess you could kind of say with both of them.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. Like, I think it was just whoever kind of got there first, right? I think what's kind of flagging everybody is instead of Microsoft taking kind of that slow approach, like, oh, I'm just going to grab one game, one this, one that, they're just like grabbing the whole pie, right? Instead of taking a piece of it. And that's what's raising a lot of flags. That's because they have the money for it. It goes back to that email. Did we already talk about it here, or is that prior to the
Which
conversation
one?
where the one Microsoft exec basically said we could just buy Sony out of business.
Oh, that's yeah, we talked about that already. The Matt Booty.
Did we? Yeah. So point being, that is an example of it where they're just like throwing their money around and trying to outdo what Sony can do from an exclusive standpoint.
Mm-hmm. Um, yeah, I
Go
don't
ahead.
know.
I'm sorry.
We're good.
No, there was trying to find oh, where is it at? I think I remember it. So remember we were talking about the Call of Duty exclusivity and everything kind of hinges on this. And Sony has been, or especially Jim Ryan has been like globetrotting trying to advocate for reasons why this should not be exclusive, how much is going to damage whatever and this and that. And what was it? That original email they found from what, like a year or so ago, he was sitting down with Phil Spencer. I think someone was it from Nintendo or something,
I don't remember.
where he basically had expressed that he never thought Call of Duty was
Oh,
going to
yeah,
be
yeah. I have
exclusive.
that on there. Mm.
Yeah, so how does that settle for you? Basically, this whole argument he's made, he never believed in himself. Like that basically just undercuts every single argument he's had this entire time.
It's incredibly disingenuous, and it's just like, again, it's another kind of corporate guy who's just looking out for numero uno. It's just making it seem as though both companies are kind of playing possum. Like you got Jim Ryan on one hand saying, "Oh, if this happens, kind of claim monopoly. Xbox is gonna dominate us with, them having Call of Duty," and then you have Phil Spencer on the other hand saying, "Oh, well, we're in third place. What can we do? We're trying to stay profitable and I don't know, just stay in the business." And it's just for me, it's just kind of, I don't know what to believe. I don't even know if it's worthy. It's good to even believe anything coming out of this. It's just you take it on face value, what is in these emails, and I feel like that's just kind of how you have to look at these companies. You have to stop like
Oh, sure.
looking at the marketing kind of speak that kind of comes out of these events and these like, even though I'm not saying Phil Spencer's a bad guy or Jim Ryan's a bad guy, but
They all have shareholders to be concerned about. That is their primary focus. I think what my point more is, I mean, not that any of them were ever truthful. Like I think most of these, PR facing statements they make are all pretty disingenuous. They're all there to, serve to appear to be consumer friendly and of course support their stakeholders however they can. But I think what I'm getting at is it undercuts the FTC's primary argument because their whole point is PlayStation users are not going to have Call of Duty. Like, I feel like 90% of their argument always comes back to Call of Duty. And the fact that Jim Ryan just undercut the entire thing, I mean, how much do you think that really undercuts or kind of destroys the FTC's argument? Like, is there, like, I mean, if I heard that and I was sitting in the, on the panel or whatnot, and I basically heard that, yeah, the guy basically said he doesn't care, doesn't think it's going exclusive, I would then be done listening to any further arguments because none of it matters anymore, right? The guy never thought it was going to be truthful in the first place. You got Microsoft offering these guys a deal. That's the route it should go. But I'm just curious if you guys have any, suggestions or kind of perspective on that.
no, I mean, I kind of agree with you. I don't know. I don't know how to counteract that because I agree with you. So
It's just ridiculous. I mean, this whole thing is ridiculous, but that one reveal, I think, just, I don't know, took the wind out of this whole argument so much. Like, because now they're still fighting with that statement on the record coming through, being like, yeah, no matter what you're concerned about with exclusivity, they know that's not going to be the case anyway. So what are you even arguing about? I mean, I know we even brought up some of the stuff about, the better, best frame rate, withholding, etc., and those are concerns, but still, I think a lot of the wind got taken out of the sails here.
and to be honest, kind of branching off of what you're saying is like you can even see this what's this judge's name? Oh shoot, I gotta figure out his name. I guess I don't have to. I think his name was like
Her name.
Her name? What's her name?
It's some with a C. I can't recall.
Cordry? It's like Cordry or Cord.
Yeah, something like that.
I don't know.
Right?
Either way,
I'll get
like
to it here in a second.
like I'll just kind of branching off what you're saying is like you can tell like in all of the write-ups I've seen of any like questioning anytime she's talking to someone from the especially the FTC side, she's very kind of like maybe it's because she knows nothing about the gaming industry and probably doesn't care about these two mega companies, you know, getting a leg up on one another. But like every time they kind of talk to her, she's just like, yeah, what's the problem? This guy over here does that too. You know what I mean? She does a lot of that. Like, why are you complaining? They're over here doing the exact same thing. You're doing the exact same thing, and it's just like, it's like
she asked a question, I think today, or made a statement was basically like, you know, if Microsoft and Xbox had gone ahead and just signed a deal for Call of Duty, if they had just, you know, went behind some closed doors, signed a contract, and they were both happy, would the FTC still be pursuing this? Like, if they didn't have Sony kind of rallying behind them, trying to fight this whole war with them, would we even be here right now if both Microsoft and Sony were happy with this deal, just kind of going to carry on their whole route? And the fact is, I don't think we would be. Yeah, I don't know, but it doesn't seem that.
And if it wasn't, and again, it all revolves around just, I guess it's just the size of Call of Duty is the only reason this is what it is. If this was them fighting over, no offense, if this was them fighting over Sega, and you know, would Sony freak out because they wouldn't lose access to Yakuza? It's like come on, you're only doing this because Call of Duty.
It is a big game.
It's a big game. Yeah.
So, and this is kind of getting a little, I don't know, analytical or kind of thinking ahead a little bit here. But so let's say that Microsoft wins this whole thing. I mean, going into this whole deal, like they were trying to put their, I don't want to say the best foot forward, but they were trying to be amicable with Sony, right? They're like, we will sign a contract, we will do this, we will do that, right? But if they go through and they win this whole argument, they have no reason to be nearly as amicable with Sony anymore because they will basically won this whole deal. At least not completely, but one of the big barriers is now gone, right? So if they own Call of Duty, I think PlayStation's almost shot themselves in the foot, whereas they did have a chance there, I think, to work out a good deal in their favor prior to this whole trial. After the trial, any deal they're going to get is not going to be nearly as good. Like, they'll probably still get Call of Duty on their platform. We've seen that's, I mean, Microsoft needs to have that happen too from a economical standpoint, but I think they probably will be in more of a position to withhold things from Sony because Sony got to miss the boat there, right? That opportunity to have a good deal is kind of gone. So, I mean, do you think that Microsoft would be bigger jerks about it after the fact, or do you think they'll still try to have a really amicable deal after this whole trial's over, assuming they win?
I mean, in my opinion, I would think they would definitely be more amicable. I think, but again, I think
after the trial.
After the
I don't
trial,
think so.
But I still think it's on a property by property basis. It's like I still think stuff that's like super big PvP stuff. I still think it's gonna stay on Sony consoles now. I
think it will stay, but the deal's just not going to be as good. Like before when you know everything's a little more up in the air, and I can't remember the exact time frame, but I feel like Xbox is going to do, I want to say a 10-year deal because they signed. That's what they're proposing with Nintendo, right?
Can Xbox, if saying hypothetically they win at Activision Blizzard, any deal that has to do with Call of Duty going to Sony, Xbox is in control of the revenue share, right? Like, is that
I mean, there would be a split there, and that's what I'm getting at. Like, prior to this trial, they may have been more willing to Sony get a bigger cut. I mean, there's policies too and procedures where the publishers kind of they say they or propose they have to have a certain amount, but arguably Xbox could have been a more favorable split prior to this trial. Now it's going to flip over. Microsoft is the one basically holding all the goods. They don't have to be as amicable, right? They could now offer Sony probably a smaller share, maybe less time. Instead of a 10-year contract, it's now a 5-year contract or a 3-year contract. And if Sony doesn't accept it, they're just out Call of Duty. And it's now on Sony because they didn't accept the deal. It's not that Microsoft didn't want to put it on there. Sony just didn't accept whatever contract Microsoft proposed. So I don't know. I feel like Sony's just really shot themselves potentially in the foot if this does not go in their favor.
I mean, I could be shooting this out of my you-know-what, but like, isn't typically the revenue share for I feel like I don't know where I got this number from. I feel like I heard it's somewhere between 20 to 30% of the revenue
actually,
created.
that came up. I just saw it.
Maybe I heard it.
80,
I read
20. Here's the thing. It's different for publishers. Like, depending on what platform you're on, the publisher takes a certain split and the developers get another split. And I know, and something I just read, it was 80-20. I just went by it, but some are 30-70, some are more extensive than that. So they take a pretty large cut if they're the one
Xbox
publishing.
Could be like, all right, well, Call of Duty can have it, but you're only getting 15. You know what I mean?
That's what I'm getting at. And I know there's more behind the scenes that I'm probably not privy to that would dictate, what that amount's going to be. Microsoft still has to make money off this, so they're probably not going to try to, hinder their sales expectations here. But at the same time, they're also not in the same position where they need to offer more to Sony. Sony's lost that opportunity by being so confrontational here, or maybe not confrontational is the way to say it, but maybe a little bit. I don't know, not working out a deal that is reasonable and amicable when they offered, I think, good deals to begin with.
And it's actually funny, since we brought up the idea of revenue share, I actually did have one more thing I wanted to touch on, is just a little branch off, is apparently years ago, maybe I don't have the year, but like apparently before the acquisition, Bobby Kotick, however, he threatened to take Call of Duty off of Xbox over greater revenue share with Xbox at one point, and apparently it worked. Xbox gave them a better revenue or share, and I mean, I'm assuming that's another thing that Xbox was just like, why don't we just buy you? Since if you're want to be such an a-hole about things, I don't know. It's just one of those things.
And now that could turn around and be the exact kind of position that Sony's in. I mean, once again, they want the game on PlayStation, because if they don't, they lose out on money. I think that's come through pretty clear. Unless they're really hiding something, they financially want to have that game on the console. But there's also nothing saying that they need to give Sony as nearly as good of a deal. So yeah, I think the revenue split's going to be very interesting as this whole thing plays out.
Mm-hmm. And I guess kind of one more thing I want to throw in, another one is I guess as it turns out, Phil Spencer confirmed, or it's been kind of confirmed by him that did I mention Starfield skipping Xbox? Did we bring that up? I don't think we did.
Well, I think you mentioned potentially being exclusive to PlayStation. That was a concern that they didn't buy. Yeah.
Okay, so I did bring that up. I don't know. Do you have any other point you want to throw up? I think I got most of my major ones.
I'm scrolling through now. One I did find interesting. I mean, I'm not super surprised by this, but I mean, not Sony. Microsoft's been arguing they've been in third place since like 2001. Basically, since the Xbox came out, they've always been in third place. I could have sworn 360 days they got a lot closer. I know it ended up with PlayStation selling more, but man, I feel like in that 360 generation, they had a pretty big lead in some ways. Maybe that was just perception on my end. I know that's when I really got into the Xbox, was during the 360 days, but I do find that interesting to see that they were still so far behind even then, especially when you consider like the Wii U time frame. But I guess the Wii U came out at the same time as the Xbox One, and Xbox One was also abysmal. So,
and isn't even in this generation, I think PS5 is still like 3-1 compared to Xbox?
Oh yeah,
it's like
right
still
now,
not
for
even
sure.
close. Yeah, even though Xbox I think is. Well, I don't see how you couldn't do better than the Xbox One generation, but they're doing better, but it's not that much better.
Yep. I'm just scrolling through right now to see if there's any big stuff we missed. I want to get to the remarks that were said today, because today was kind of closing arguments and everything, but I'm just skimming through really quick. If you have another point, by all means, bring it up.
I think I had all the points I really wanted to touch on. Let me see.
Oh, I haven't gotten here yet, but did you see, like, while all this is going on, there were other regulating bodies that had some stuff coming in from like Canada, and the CMA had some new stuff? Did you catch all that?
No.
So Microsoft, in one of their statements on one of these days, basically said that, yeah, every other regulation body pretty much in the entire world is cool with this. I don't remember if they excluded the CMA or not, but they're like everybody else. And like the very next day or day of, Canada comes in, is like, we don't like this. And Xbox basically just said, shut up. They put out a response basically saying that the Canadian regulation body had missed the time frame to actually submit anything official. So they literally just were like, stop talking, Canada. which I thought was just really funny. I mean, it's interesting because clearly there are other regulatory bodies that are not okay with this. So they're being a little hyperbolic to say that every country is cool with this, but I just find it funny because it's Canada. So, and then you have the thing where the CMA put out an injunction because we all know that they pushed back over there against this deal about 2 months ago. CMA was kind of against this over in the was the UK? Yeah.
The UK.
But I guess Microsoft appealed, and the CMA was trying to reverse that appeal or put it off, and the appeal got denied. Or not the I'm sorry, the appeal didn't get denied, but the CMA's request to push off the appeal got denied because basically they wanted to push it off till October, which would have screwed over this whole deal, right? The whole point is they have to have this deal done in July, and then the whatever body as the appeal kind of commission over there was like, no, we're not doing that. That doesn't seem fair to Xbox. Which I thought was kind of funny. So they, didn't push forward with that. So it's still kind of going in Xbox's favor on these external regulating bodies. I found those funny, especially the Canada one.
I guess one thing I did want to bring up is shoot. Oh, I lost my trail of thought. Great. It was something had to do with Matt Booty. Dang it, really? I had something I wanted to bring up. Sorry, go ahead. Dang it. What was it? It was Matt Booty was talking about oh man, this is something I totally didn't have in my notes, but I remembered it. Oh well, I'm gonna drop it. I'm sure it'll come back to me in the next few.
Fair enough. I'm almost back to the beginning of this list. There's just been so much here. I mean, a lot of this is, small detailed stuff, but I don't know. There's just been some interesting things. The whole redaction issue I thought was really funny. Just how important company secrets and details all got leaked because one of the Sony workers used a Sharpie to redact information instead of going through proper software to do it. I thought that was just funny.
I don't know. So yeah, shoot, I totally ruined. I had a really cool thing to say.
Sure you did. I don't believe that
well.
at all.
I don't know. As a whole, what do you guys think? Do you guys think this is gonna happen or no? Yay or nay? I hate to say it. I think they're gonna rule in favor of Xbox. I don't see any.
Why do you hate to say it?
Oh, 'cause I hate to make
Just
it
say it, man.
I hate to make it seem as though I have a side because I don't. But I just don't think. I just don't think the FTC put forth a very good argument. I don't think they put forth a strong case for why I think most people know what this is going to do for Xbox. It'll be big. This will be huge. There's no doubt it'll shift the way some things are, but I just don't think the FCC in a very thoughtful way was able to represent that to the judge or to the courts. It's I feel like they did a pretty piss poor job. Maybe it's because it's hard to explain that to people who have no understanding of the business. Like the judge and whoever is overseeing it knows a lot about a law.
Well, I think the judge has been seeing through a lot of their BS. I mean, the FTC's case, and I mentioned this already, has not had a whole lot to really stand on. It's not the fact that there isn't an issue here. Yes, there are potential concerns with Microsoft owning everything, right? They could become super scummy and do some really crappy stuff with how they handle exclusivity or, party exclusives, whatever it may be. That's all true, but the way they've been framing it, I think, has not come across well, that it's only hinged on Call of Duty, that it's so much been based upon just the Sony consumer and not consumers as a whole. It's been really easy, I think, for Xbox to poke holes in those arguments with some pretty, I think, impactful statements. What was it? Spencer came on and said under oath, we will provide a contract so Call of Duty can stay on PlayStation. So that argument is now gone.
He had that behind his back, though.
Maybe
that overrides.
Yeah, nobody's ever lied under oath. So
he was signing it. He was like.
The point being is just about every one of those arguments, I feel like Microsoft, to the best of their ability, has given a fairly good counter argument to why that's not as big of an issue. And I think a lot of the judges just kind of statements on the candor of how they've kind of framed some of their questions after the closing arguments has really kind of shown that, basically saying that that one thing I was saying, you know, if Xbox and Sony had made a deal prior to this, would we even be here? It's all about just this one game, and clearly that's not the only reason that these companies are successful. Like, she's made statements that are very clear that the FTC argument I don't think is 100% sold in her eyes. Not that Xbox has come across, you know, 100% favorable here. They've shot themselves in the foot a few times. And there was one statement I'm trying to find that the judge gave that the Xbox lawyer did not agree with. Where was it? Oh man, it's so hard to shift through all this. I don't see it. Anyway, point being, I think this will go in Xbox's favor. I don't think the FTC has made a big enough case. And I don't think the CMA case over in the UK is going to go much better. And I think it's almost worse because their case is only hinging on cloud technology. So I think that's going to fall through even quicker than this will. But I don't know. The fact that there's not like even a unifying issue between the different regulatory bodies, I think is kind of telling here. They're picking certain battles, and I don't think it's working out in the FTC's favor. But I guess we'll see. Because I know what the potential time frame is after 4th of July when they come back for the holiday. Judge will probably have a verdict on this whole thing.
I mean, that's, from what I understand, a lot of people are expecting, yeah, probably Wednesday, if not, you know, a day or two later than that. But, I mean, like you're saying, it seems as though everyone's rushing this thing. Like, I didn't even realize they were already at, like, deliberation. The next thing I know, I'm seeing articles of, like, day 1, day 2, day 3. I'm like, oh, okay.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I found this one comment by the judge. So in the closing arguments and questioning afterwards, Judge Corley said, "We wouldn't even be here if Microsoft made Call of Duty. It's the purchasing right. We don't benefit from just buying up each other. We benefit from keeping things separate and therefore incentivizing people to create themselves." So her perspective is that she doesn't like the idea of one company buying up everything else. So I think that is one kind of a perspective she's taking on this that isn't favorable towards Xbox. Microsoft did have a follow-up there, kind of rebuttal, saying that that's not true. We want smaller groups to create content, and the fact that someone purchased just means they're not small anymore. So whether that be Activision or whatnot, they're still then using those bodies to create new experiences and whatnot. So a little, you know, beating around the bush there. But I mean, that's, I think, the bigger argument here about any company buying up too much, right? They want these other independents to be more creative and have a reason to create more interesting experiences than just buying up what the competition is. So,
and I just remembered what I was going to mention. Now, I guess this is more tangentially. Is that a word? Tangentially?
To the side.
No.
Yeah.
But essentially, another email that I think kind of came up was that Matt Booty was emailing with somebody, and they were just kind of talking about just the status of just AAA game making currently, and they were just talking about how, like, I guess they were just going on and on about how difficult it is now, where he was just talking about how, like, you know, at minimum nowadays you're looking at 5 years in terms
it's difficult, but it's bloated, I think, is part of it.
Well, that's why a lot of people, that's what you're exactly the direction that the conversation that I saw people going in, is that people are saying that, like, just because something's AAA, does it need to be quite so bloated? Like, you can't make an experience that, like, can be a great, like, what happened to the years, the times of, like, a 5 to 10 hour game being, like,
yeah,
incredible, or like a, you know, like a linear experience that feels great, you know what I mean?
And that is the problem with so many large publishers putting out these games, because they want every product they put out
Zelda.
to be a big money maker. Huh?
I said Zelda. That game went on.
Well, that's okay. That's, I'm not talking about length. Like, that's a different argument.
No,
here.
I feel like Zelda was bloated with side stuff.
Okay, that's not what I mean by bloated, though. I don't mean the game itself is bloated. I mean the process of developing a game is bloated. And I guess what I was getting at,
you guys are much more knowledgeable with, not the business end, but you guys know about game making to an extent. So
I don't yes and no. I mean, there's plenty of stuff I'm not overly privy to, but point being is there's a lot of pressure on a game to make a lot of money, and it puts companies in a stance where they don't want to take as big of a risk on something, right? If they look at a game, and it could be, a fine, small game that might do reasonably well, but if there's no guarantee of that, why would they take the risk on investing in it? So they want to make these big, high budget games that have a good chance of being successful, making a lot of money. And that's where the bloat comes from, right? These big budgets, these big marketing dollars, like all this money gets put behind it. It bloats the whole process. There's larger expectations on the game, larger stresses, more, what's a good way to say it's more ambition they're trying to reach, which they can never reach, which leads to crunch. Like that's where I think a lot of this starts bloating up the process, right? And that's why games now take so much longer. They have to be these big, amazing games that are going to sell gajillion dollars, right? So I don't know. I think that is an issue with having these larger corporations owning everything. They all see dollars. They all want as many dollars as possible. Potentially smaller companies don't have that same level of expectation.
And how that kind of, I just remembered how that kind of ties back into the main ideal is that at one point, let's see, I'm at the exact section. Judge Corley had asked the FTC about Bethesda games that were comparably important to Call of Duty, leading the FTC to cite Elder Scrolls as a potential equivalent. Microsoft's head lawyer, Beth Wilkinson, then corrected a mistake with her own mistake, which is where she...
Elder Scrolls 16.
Yeah, this is where she clarified that the game that's most similar to Call of Duty is something like Elder Scrolls. There are 2 Elder Scrolls games, one online, one single player. Talked about how Elder Scrolls 16 is projected to release in 2026 as a single player game and is not anywhere similar to Call of Duty, which is multiplayer and multi-platform. But yeah, like I guess just kind of how that ties in is that like they're talking about something like Elder Scrolls, which they're talking about comes out in 2026, and it's like, no, it's like that the game's not going to be out by 2026. Like that game is in, I think in another email that came out as like it's still in like pre-production, and that's being worked on by the Starfield people, which Starfield's not even out yet. So that game is at least 5, 6, 7 years out. Yeah, it's like why even bring a game like that into the conversation? That game, in my opinion, in terms of how it operates, is nothing like Call of Duty, and I don't know. I just thought that was
I get what you're saying. There is one more fun little dig that the judge made to Sony I want to bring up. They were talking, I think, a little bit about like Game Pass versus PlayStation Plus, and because the whole thing is, Game Pass is going to get Call of Duty, and it's going to be this huge juggernaut of a service, and it's just going to ruin PlayStation Plus. And the judge was just like, well, make your PlayStation Plus service better. They're basically like, put that Thor game on it. And that Thor game she's talking about is God of War, which I thought was funny. But that's a fair point. I mean, I know Sony's taking a different approach to their Game Pass-like service, but yeah, make it more appealing. Like, I don't think the PlayStation Plus service is terrible right now. I don't think it's as good as Game Pass. Granted, Game Pass also isn't as good as it was, but yeah, Sony could be more competitive if they were just like, all right, our first parties will also come back out on PlayStation Plus day one or within a month or however they want to, kind of set that up. So they have other ways to be more competitive than just, oh, you have Call of Duty, we're dead in the water, right? They have other things they could do.
So to be fair,
and part of it is, no, I was going to say, part of it is everybody's putting Call of Duty up on this pedestal, like there's nothing that can compete with it. That's true, but I don't feel like a lot of people are really trying. Like, what other game has come out that's really tried to be, I don't want to say a Call of Duty killer, but something that could ease
certainly not
that
Battlefield.
a little bit. It's certainly not Battlefield. But to be fair, what if PlayStation turned around and tried to get some exclusive rights to Battlefield? And Battlefield became good again? I mean, I'm just saying, I'm not saying that's going to happen, but, there was a time when Battlefield didn't have the same market share as Call of Duty, just because it's a different type of game. Not everybody's going to play as casually.
It was a way better game, but
I think it was too, but it was also a more involved game. Like a Battlefield match would take 20, 30 minutes, whereas Call of Duty was like 5 minutes. So I think Call of Duty always has a mass appeal that Battlefield didn't. But point being is, why doesn't PlayStation either invest in something similar or create something? Now there will be some time there; they have to work on it. But you've got Bungie under their belt
now.
They're about to put out Marathon. Marathon could be something like this. I don't know. I'm just
have
saying
Bungie
that
make the next Killzone game. I mean, they have their own shooter franchise they used to work with, Killzone, but they just haven't made one in forever, it feels like.
Well, this even goes back to what the judge was saying. It's like, well, people should just create things. That should be incentivizing to create. Well, if Microsoft buys Call of Duty, that's going to sure as a lot of fire under Sony's butt to create something or buy something, I guess. But point being is Call of Duty is not the end all be all. Like, Nintendo has done perfectly fine over the past decade without Call of Duty. So to let your entire argument hinge on that, I think is what, if anything, is going to put this whole argument down for the FTC.
To be fair, though, I think, again, reverting back to the top, my point of things being cyclical and everything going in a circle, all that's going to happen is if Xbox, knock or ties down Call of Duty, Sony's just going to continue. I guess in a way, I'm about to say, I don't know if I agree, but I understand kind of what Sony's been doing in terms of locking up certain games for momentary exclusivity as much as they can, because it's the only way they can compete with an entity like Microsoft. Like,
Well, yes and no.
I mean, I guess you're saying they can if they focus on the devs and the publishers and making quality titles.
But yeah, I think that's the thing.
But as Microsoft, that all hinges on both companies agreeing with each other on, all right, we're not going to buy anybody. We're just going to make good games. It's like.
Okay, but here's the thing. So when I think about PlayStation, not that PlayStation have other reasons to own a PlayStation. I see Metal over there just hasn't said anything in a while. But the point being is one of the main reasons you buy a PlayStation has been because of the first party PlayStation games, right? You bought it for Spider-Man. You bought it for God of War. You bought it for The Last of Us. They clearly do make in-house creative experiences that is not on any other platform, and I don't feel like that's going to stop. Right? They're going to continually make, and maybe it'll be in these same franchises, but Sony's come up with new IPs over the past 3, 4, 5 years that have done really, really well for them. They could bring back Uncharted. They've got you grit your teeth over there, but it's true. Like Microsoft's, even with all these acquisitions, when I think about big IPs that will go one-on-one with some of the big stuff that Sony has and the potential they can create, I don't think Sony's going to have a big losing battle here. It will make things more competitive. I don't think they're all of a sudden going to fall to last place.
Sony can only do that once or twice a year. What
has Xbox done?
Oh,
in the past 5, 6, 7 years?
Nothing. That's what they've done.
Okay, even if they have Activision, how much are they going to put? They do a Call of Duty a year. Okay, so that's a big moneymaker.
That's true. Like even if they get Activision Blizzard, it's like, what are you gonna get? Redfall 2 or what else are you gonna? Yeah, I agree with you.
I'm getting that. Activision is really kind of, at least over the past few years, they've funneled into only producing a couple of big games a year. Like they have some of their smaller things, but think about big Activision games that are out there now. I can't think of many. I mean, you got Call of Duty.
Overwatch 2, people have forgotten about already.
Yeah, but that's Blizzard. And Blizzard people aren't even bringing to this conversation much. Probably because Sony doesn't really have anything that even competes with anything on the Blizzard side of things. Like, there's no Diablo equivalent out there on the PlayStation right now. There's no... Overwatch is Overwatch, but it's not even doing well right now. So, point being is, I don't feel like there is enough sitting there in the Activision Blizzard catalog that's just going to immediately demolish what PlayStation's offering.
Bandicoot. I mean...
Yeah. Not saying there aren't, old IP now they can pull from, like Hexen's in there. Like, there's some cool stuff Microsoft could do with the Activision properties. I mean, I'm hoping for a revitalized Tony Hawk
Phil
Pro
Spencer
Skater
wearing
HD.
a Hexen shirt? Didn't he wear it in the showcase?
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, it's all kind of theoretical and speculative at this point, but Sony has just as much stuff they could pull from or create. They've got amazing talent over there. I don't think this is going to hurt them to the point where they go out of business. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think they've got enough over on their side of things that they're going to keep on going just fine for quite a while. A lot of the value here, and we mentioned this, for Xbox getting this purchase, yeah, Call of Duty's part of it. A lot of it is King and the mobile space. A lot of it is Blizzard and World of Warcraft, MMO side of things. Like, that's where a lot of, I think, their long-term profitability is probably going to come from. Yeah, they're going to make a lot of buku bucks off Call of Duty in the meantime, but the Call of Duty might even fade off in 5-10 years. If Sony does a good job and finds some kind of competitor, maybe. I don't know. Once again, speculation, but I don't see this being something that kills the market.
Do you think both companies are spending too much time on this? On all this, just this whole saga? Because it's just like there are things that both sides should be focused on. Like, I know a lot of people have been complaining immensely about PSVR 2. A lot of people are like, where are the PlayStation VR games? Like, I don't know if you've seen, but like the last few Sony State of Play events I've seen that have had multiple PSVR games that have like shown, they look exactly the same and they look boring and they're just like normal shooters. And I know the Horizon game, people weren't so psyched on it. Apparently people were calling it a climbing simulator, and it's just like, and Xbox, they need to focus on their games, obviously, with Redfall, Halo. No one knows where the heck Halo is anymore. Where is Gears of War? Like both sides should be focused on what they have going on. Instead, you got Phil Spencer in a suit walking around with his lunch in a court case. I don't know.
Metal, why don't you go ahead? I feel like I have overtalked. So
I've heard enough. I'm already fatigued by this whole entire thing. It's just crazy. The whole thing is
Metal
insane,
just brought his popcorn.
in my opinion.
He just wanted to see the two duke it out.
I'm just gonna sip my water or vodka.
I guess I will continue to overtalk then. Like, who's to say though that fighting this battle is directly taking away from those things? Like, sure, there are resources going towards it, but that doesn't mean they're not working on these other things. It's hard. I feel like, once again, I could be wrong very much when we see the verdict. I feel like this has been a losing battle, or a very uphill battle for most of these other entities, for Sony, for the FTC. If it does end up going in Microsoft's favor, yeah, it feels like a lot of wasted time, a wasted effort. But I don't know if they would have sat in the sidelines and done nothing, if all of a sudden we would have had, some amazing VR2 games for it. Like, Sony just has, and this is getting off to a whole another topic, but the way they handle alternative hardware and peripheral devices and whatnot is crappy, and it always has been. You're going back to like the Vita days, the PSP, like they don't support those devices well. The PSVR 2, that was not set up well to begin with. The price was a lot.
I'm not gonna lie, that's typical Sony though. Like, just saying,
that would have failed.
All the devices never get lots of support anyway.
I feel like I totally forgot. I feel like the price of the Project Q got released with all of this.
Oh, I missed all that. I forgot about that. The PSU.
Microsoft is in the courts against US FTC. Activision prevented Call of Duty. In a screenshot, he highlighted the shocking price reveal. Sony is also anticipated to release a handheld version of the PS5 later this year for under $300.
And that's what their local play device would be, the Q.
Why that's such a weird way to say it? For less than 300? So does that mean 300? Or
they probably don't have it finalized. Yeah, it could be $299, or they might be waiting to see where the market shifts and they drop it, depending. But still, point being is Sony they probably wouldn't have done well with the PSVR 2 regardless if this whole thing happened. But that could be another conversation. I just remember hearing that and I was like,
podcast. That thing cannot be 300. That's going to be a colossal, I don't want to say failure, but I think people are going to be disappointed with that. Isn't it like a? It's not an LCD
device.
Screen either. It's just like a.
Well, it's LCD. I don't know if it's going to be OLED.
Or OLED is what I'm thinking. It's not OLED. Yeah.
I mean, like every other handheld device they made, just kind of comes and goes like the wind. Well,
Metal, I don't think you really gave your opinion yet. Do you think Microsoft is going to pull this out, or do you think they're going to get shafted by the FTC and Sony?
I don't know, man. After seeing like all the runaround that FTC, they don't even know what they're talking about at this point.
You could have finished Zelda this whole time we were talking.
I mean, they were just throwing everything at this whole thing. It's just really messy. It's really messy. I think if Microsoft does pull this off, then hey, let's see some better PlayStation games, in my opinion.
Do either of you have any concerns? Like, truly, if Microsoft does win this, not if they'll win, but assuming they do, do we ultimately feel that one day this is going to end up being the apocalypse. Like this will turn around in 5 years, and all of a sudden we'll have Phil Spencer as our overlord, and our PS4s will be on fire. I don't know.
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
I think my one thing I would be interested in is if this acquisition does hypothetically go through, I would be curious what exactly happens with Activision. I mean, I still think they're going through multiple lawsuits. I still think they're still routinely criticized. So it's like, is Kotick still going to be kept on board? Who's going to be put on a ship and sent out to sea? You know, it's like I would be
That's true.
Like, I would speak very curious what exactly just happens. Like, I mean, the easiest thing for Microsoft would be just to leave things be if they want like a immediate, return on investment, ROI. You know, you want to try and make up that $70 billion. The last thing you want to do is start kicking people out. So
but you bring up a good point. Like one of the reasons people were somewhat favorable of Microsoft taking over was to see Kotick get the boot, right?
Would he? Because you want your money back as quickly as possible.
Well, that's what most people have wanted, looking from the outside in, because just before all this happens, when you had the whole Activision debacle, right, with all the harassment and stuff going on there, so most people want Kotick out, but would Microsoft kick him out?
I don't think so. I don't think it would be immediate, because once you start moving people around at the top, I mean, you've got to institute people, and it takes time to do stuff.
Unless Kotick's wanting a golden parachute. Like there could be something else in this clause where when they sign that deal and it goes through, he gets some major payday and he just goes away. Like I don't know, I'm not saying that would happen, but
he hops in a Zelda air balloon, floats away.
Like I mean, I'll tell you, if I was in his boat, and I'm not, I can't even fathom that. But the guy already has pools of money, like. He's going to get more whenever he gets, bought out or whatever it is. Why wouldn't you just want out of that position, right?
No,
you have all this crap over your head, all this legal nonsense of harassment. I'd want to be out of the spotlight.
I think some people like that are like, I think what I get from him is serious case of like workaholism, where it's like they're just addicted to.
Is it the work though, or is it the money? Like, Alan, at that level,
probably both.
I don't think it's about the work. It's about acquiring more, which of course you work to get that to a certain extent. Exactly. I can't really speak to his work ethic necessarily, but I don't know. You got to imagine this guy has more money than any one person will ever need. Why would you want more? Just get out of there. But I don't know. That's capitalism though, isn't it? So.
Some people like being on the tip of people's tongues, That's another thing is like you're You're like, people like that. I don't know.
No, it's fair. I'm just, at this point.
Maybe that's what's wrong with my.
Delirious from having enough coffee.
Maybe that's what's wrong with my channel. I need to start doing things to get people talking.
You need to be on the tip of people's tongues.
Yeah.
Oh, gross.
Oh.
What can I do to spicing things up here?
So I guess the other question, that's if Microsoft does win. If they lose, do we think they go back to the table, or do they try to negotiate? Because I don't know if I know we talked about prior to the podcast starting, but if this does not go through and this gets pushed back, the whole point of this is not to shutter the deal. That's not the outcome of this trial. It's to push off the decision so the FTC can further investigate is the whole point. But if they push it off and it goes past the mid-July date of the closing, whatever it is, that was like July 18th, but I could be wrong.
Doesn't somebody owe $2 or $3 billion if they lose?
They have to pay, I think it's like $3 billion to Activision, and then they have to renegotiate the whole thing, which they could do, but do they bother at that point?
And if they win, do their fees get covered for this whole case, or?
If they win and there's nothing else pushing back against the deal closing, which I think that would be the case, if this does not get pushed back,
who would cover their case fees?
They can close the deal.
The court fees. No. I thought that was a speculation. Who would cover
I don't know. I can't imagine that's the primary issue, though. Like, I'm sure that's not a cheap thing, but I'm sure Microsoft will pay the court fees if that's what it needs to be. Or it might be, I don't know if the FTC has to pay. I really have no idea there. I'm speaking out of my butt to even try to guess there. The bigger thing is if they lose, that's $3 billion in the hole and a renegotiation. Do you think they'll even bother? Or are they just going to scrap the whole thing, move on? Can they move on? What else do they do now?
I don't know. That's
It's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money to
Right.
waste.
It's a lot, but they're
They
about
could
to drop
do it.
$70 billion. So
Yeah, like they could do it.
no one wants to lose $3 billion, but
I hate to
they
say
could
that.
lose $3 billion and keep on going.
I've kind of shifted my.
They'll be fine.
I've kind of shifted
I
my
don't think
thoughts.
they're gonna go back though.
I think they're going to go back and renegotiate, even if they
You
lose.
think so?
Maybe, yeah.
Hmm.
I just think that like this would be such an L for them. Like, I know they've been taking a lot with how things have been operating, but like, or no, I don't know. Maybe they would just want to move on. I have no idea. Maybe they would turn their attention to Square Enix or I don't know, some other company. What about Sega? I mean, you do have all those funds opened up. I'm just trying to think of like. I'm saying in my head that is Call of Duty really worth it? But I do think the answer is probably yes, right? It kind of has to be. I mean,
It's a cash cow.
it's a cash
freaking
cow.
game.
And then something like the mobile company, what was it
King.
King, like with Candy Crush? It's just, I mean, those two IPs alone, you'll probably make up a percentage of that 70 billion pretty quickly, I would think.
What do you think, Metal? They keep going or they scrap
I mean,
it?
they're probably gonna keep going and just renegotiate. I mean, to them, that's like a thing they must have. Like they see it already, and it seems like it's like a golden apple for them for quite some time.
Golden
They've been
apple.
talking about it for quite some time though, like for several years now. So I mean, they can use it, I guess.
Why is a golden apple better than a normal apple?
You want a golden banana?
It sells more in Tears of the Kingdom.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh man, I forgot I got one
doesn't
of those.
taste better.
Anyway,
I think they move on. They scrap it because
yeah.
here's the thing: if they lose this trial, that now gives the FTC more leverage, more time to investigate, and also sets a precedent. Like a judge has ruled not in their favor, right? So they've already set a precedent that there's an issue that a judge took with it and did not give them a favorable outcome. Gives the FTC more time. That gives the CMA more time. It lets everybody rebuild their case a little bit. And I feel like at that point, they're fighting a larger losing battle than they already were. So
Like,
I'm not saying they don't want Call of Duty, but I think they might shift it and
it's almost
focus
like
their
dead
money
fish
elsewhere.
yeah, it's like dead fish in the water at that point. Like, yeah, it may not be a good thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah,
Super-
I would agree with you on that. If it doesn't work with it, it's just not going to work.
By
but
next
we'll
episode,
see.
we're definitely going to be able to give our opinions on what exactly is going on. That's for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, from what I understand, I mean, everyone I've heard talk about it says the decision is imminent. I don't see why they would know any more than anyone else, but
I gotta think the judge at this point probably has a pretty good idea where they're leaning. So it's just a matter of getting back and dropping that bomb.
just offer the judge lifetime Game Pass, and I'm sure she'd
Yeah,
be
right.
like, ooh.
And there it is. Oh goodness.
Just don't mess with my Blizzard games. Don't put it
you
only
think-
exclusive to Microsoft,
how
even though I
quick-
could still play it no matter what.
How quickly would Diablo 4 be put on Game Pass if it goes through?
It's powerful enough to handle it. I don't see why not.
Do you think they would just like slap it on in the next few weeks?
I don't think they could just slap it on. Like they have to. That's a. Yeah, I don't think.
I
they could
think
just-
they're gonna wait and restructure that tier system we heard about.
Yeah.
So they'll restructure the whole subscription service, and tier 1 is Diablo and Call of Duty. Tier 2 is Overwatch. Tier 3 is Crash Bandicoot.
and then watch all the money fly out of our pockets for these tiers. And our tears are gonna fall through our eyes after that.
Do you guys think there was anything withheld from the recent Xbox showcase?
Besides Elder Scrolls 16,
due to what was going on here, that things are up in the air. So do you think there was anything major that might have been held back?
Elder Scrolls
Maybe.
6?
That's so speculative. It's hard to say. They have so many other developers under their belt right now. I'm sure there's other stuff they're wanting to do, and there's probably other plans. But yeah, they're probably playing some stuff close to the chest. I think they announced enough in their showcase to get enough buzz, get enough traction, have enough stuff on the horizon.
Isn't
You
there
never want
technically a new
show
Call of
everything
Duty
you've
game
got.
this year, and we still haven't seen anything about it?
Yeah, do we need to? It's going to be more of the same.
I think let's see what happens next year.
But that's what I'm saying is like
if all this goes through, a lot of things are going to be changing.
there
for next
normally
year.
is a new Call of Duty game out every November,
Yeah.
December. It's like if Xbox had owned them, would a Call of Duty game have been talked about at this event? You know, something
Probably.
crazy like that.
Yeah, most likely.
There's still time for that push, though. I mean, they'll get through July. It'll have a very different picture painted about how this deal is going to turn out. And that probably will change their marketing strategy. They'll either have to go back to some backup plans, or we'll see a lot of Blizzard cross Microsoft advertising coming out, just like we saw with Bethesda and Microsoft. So
We're gonna see
we'll
it
find
on
out next week.
all our Windows machines are gonna have Call of Duty all over it.
Can't wait.
Oh god.
Alrighty, guys. Well, we went on. I cannot believe we did an hour and a half.
There's a lot here. We didn't even really scratch the surface. I mean, there's so many nuggets. If you're listening to this and you haven't checked out some of the stuff in this trial,
That's crazy.
Go back and read some summaries. Like, there's some of it's funny, some of it's revealing, and some of it's just sad and depressing. But it's interesting. So
That's a good way to put it. You put everything in a bowl and just had us listen. Thank you.
All right, everybody. Well, that was this week's EnteR ChatZ MaN Podcast. Once again, apologies we didn't do a full episode. I don't know. We were anticipating starting later and not having as much time, and I guess time-wise we might have been able to actually do a full one. But next week we promise we will, or next two episode we will definitely do a full one, and you can expect before that, hopefully, with Gamer's Rapid Pace, we will get to talk about Zelda. I finished the game. Phoenix finished it before us, and we're just waiting on Gamer to kind of blast his way through. Maybe this weekend.
get them tears.
Oh, I finished them already.
Oh. Now you just gotta finish the dungeons.
Oh well. I gotta go back in the desert. Stop it.
All right, everybody.
No.
All right, guys.
But yeah, once again on screen, audio locations right there, social medias. We'd love to hear. What do you guys think about this whole court case going on? We'd love to hear back. But yeah, what do you guys got to say before we head on out?
Bye.
Nothing.
Yeah.
Nighty night. We'll see you with the Zelda talk. Bye bye, everybody.
See ya.